No woman, no cry. No woman, no cry. Ee, little darling, don't shed no tear. No woman, no cry. Good friends we have, and good friends we've lost along the way. In this great future, you can't forget your past. So dry your tears, I say. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright now. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be.
I am queen of the most powerful nation in the world, and my entire family is gone. Have I not given everything?
Fresh takers, what's going on? I missed you guys so much, and I know I have a lot of explaining to do, and I am definitely going to explain and get into that. But I wanted to say welcome back to the Fresh Take Cinema Show. I never stopped the Fresh Take Cinema Show. It's just a lot going on, a lot of good things, some bad, but I wasn't giving up, and I definitely wanted to come back and do a review for Black Panther Wakanda Forever because this movie means a lot to me. Of course, it means a lot to our culture, so we are definitely going to get into that. But I did want to first stop and give a shout out to my guy Alonzo. I'm actually wearing his merchandise. As you can see, Silent Warrior. So I wanted to give him a shout out. I will put the link to his website in the description. And definitely want you guys to support. It's great clothing. I love it. I've bought like 5 or 6 items already. So I definitely want to support my people. So check that out once the video is over. But let's go ahead and get into the review for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. All right, so as we get into this, I want to start with saying just how emotional this movie is. Man, I cried. I cried about 6 times in this movie, and I am going to be spoiling everything about this movie. So you should have seen it by now. We are, as I'm recording this, we are in the month of December, so you definitely should have seen it by now. But man, the emotion in this movie, as of course everyone knows, the passing of Chadwick Boseman, and just the opportunity of continuing playing T'Challa, aka the Black Panther. It was definitely very sad to not have him, a part of this movie, and for him to lose his life in a battle with cancer. Honestly, I think a lot of people get emotional because of, he played the Black Panther, but Chadwick meant a lot to me. I can't speak for anybody else, but he meant a lot to me as just being a beacon of light for our culture. He was, to me, I say the next Denzel Washington. What I mean by that is, Denzel Washington always carried himself in a way where us as black people were very proud of him and proud in his work and everything about him as a person. And Chadwick did the same thing. His acting, who he was as a person, you know, giving back to people, coming from an HBCU. Like, there was a lot of things that Chadwick did that just meant a lot to us as a culture. So it was felt beyond him playing Black Panther. Him playing Black Panther just was the icing on the cake because of just having a black superhero to this magnitude, and then who he was as a person. It was just like a perfect marriage. I honestly don't think they could have picked anybody better for the opportunity, and that's why I'm glad that they didn't recast this. This is something where I just feel like he murdered that role so well that it's hard to see anyone else be T'Challa. Now, of course, the movie shows that Shuri assumes the role of Black Panther, which is great. I honestly wanted that from the beginning when they said that they were going to continue with Black Panther 2. I was a person that kept saying Shuri needs to be that person. It was hard to see. It was hard to see her in that role, of course, once Black Panther was done, and then all the Avengers movies, because we saw Shuri in a certain light. We saw her as the young sister that was very smart. She was as smart as Tony Stark, and ran all of the technology and the science behind Wakanda. But there was an opportunity for a character growth and a character arc, and that was another reason that this movie was super emotional, because it was just, you could feel it. You could feel it the whole movie. They did a really great job of just hitting us from on all sides of this, the emotional spectrum, because it was real life, but also, even if he didn't pass in real life, they did such a good job of displaying that emotion and you connecting to it that you had no other choice but to get emotional. The opening scenes of Shuri trying to save T'Challa's life and in her lab trying to figure out, medical treatments that she could come up with to help save T'Challa. And, Queen Ramonda coming in and telling Shuri, like, your brother's gone. And then having that funeral, that emotional scene. Like, I know that the trailers and when they've hyped up this movie, they've shown a lot of the funeral happening, but it didn't prepare you. It still hit you hard, and I love that they were able to convey that true emotion. I know people are like, oh, it would be easy. You just think about him in real life, but it's not always easy to still put that in an artful way, to show that and display that in an artful way. It was displayed in a beautiful way where, you did see that emotion. That there was real emotion behind it, but it was still done beautifully, in a movie sense. But, they told a really good story of tying that in, because I know that they had another original script that, of course, involved Chadwick Boseman playing T'Challa, and for them to have to adapt to real life happenings. They told a great story. I really felt like they told an amazing story, but it just felt really good for Shuri to take the lead of Black Panther. I honestly I give Letitia Wright so much credit, because you think about a lot of the supporting cast for a lot of the Marvel movies. They do a great job, but then it's like, if they assume the role of the lead, how well do you think they would do? Like, Falcon and Winter Soldier, with Cap being gone, their TV series, they're basically kind of, cohesively assuming Cap's, role, and they were his friends, but it doesn't feel the same, if that makes sense, because it's like on a grander scale. Shuri is now, helping protect an entire country. She's now the protector of Wakanda as the Black Panther, and it's just a lot of weight on her shoulders. And for her to have the type of story and character arc here in this movie was amazing to see, because like I said, she started from being very young, and very young, very smart when we first were introduced to her in the first Black Panther, to what she does in this movie. It's amazing to go through the emotions she goes through with losing her brother, and then we'll get into it, but losing her mom, and then trying to go to battle and go to war with another tribe, another nation, or whatever you want to call them. That was a lot. It's a huge character arc. There's a lot of emotions that she goes through, and she does an amazing job. I know I'm kind of harping on it, but I can't get over how great of a job that she really did, with taking over the lead of this movie. But also, it still, in the sense of performance wise, like everyone, I felt like even though Shuri assumed the lead, everyone's performance, it was like a group effort to really make this movie good, and I love that. We had so many people, like Angela Bassett and everyone that plays in the movie, Lupita. I mean, they just, it was amazing. It really was. To kind of, it's almost it's almost kind of like an example of when you have a group, a singing group. A lot of times there's the group, and then you kind of know who the lead is. So the lead vocal, the lead vocals on the mics, the lead vocal's kind of the highest, and everyone else is in the middle. But with losing Chadwick, it was like, okay, everyone has to be raised. Everyone has to be raised to the same level to make this movie work, and they delivered. And I felt like they really came together and supported Shuri to take the mantle of Black Panther. So that's some of the things that I really liked about the movie. I loved the villain choice. I have never heard of this villain before. I know I love superhero stuff. I'm a nerd. But I'm not that person where I take pride in knowing every little person in the comics and all that. That's not me. I enjoy it as I learn about it. So I had no prior knowledge of Namor. But man, I really liked who they chose to play him. He did a great job. His story was kind of weird, but I understood. I liked it. I liked that it was kind of similar to Killmonger, and the first Black Panther was like, really about his people and protecting his people, and that played a part into his motives. But I really liked just everything about him as a character, to where I was like, okay, he could be the next Loki, honestly, and that's what I wanted for Killmonger. I wanted Killmonger to be the next Loki, where he's introduced to us as a villain in the beginning, but then he has character growth where he struggles with sometimes being on a good side, being on the bad side, and just having that overall growth into a different person. And we, myself and other people wanted that for Killmonger, and that's why we were sad to have him die in the first one. So that the fact that we got another villain that we really like, that gets to live, he comes close to dying, but he gets to live, that I felt like we were kind of heard on that one. I felt like, Ryan Coogler as a director and all the writers really heard how we felt about losing Killmonger, and they listened and acted on it. So I definitely love that part. But also what I loved was the visuals of this movie. All of the water scenes look just fantastic. The special effects look great. Shuri in the Black Panther suit, Jesus. Can we talk about that? Like, honestly, I love the different suit. I love the suit. Honestly, the suit she's in is my favorite Black Panther suit. She just looks amazing in it. You know, to get a deeper dive into what inner city of Wakanda looks like, because I know a lot of people, from the first movie were like, well, we want to see more of Wakanda, and you really didn't get to see a whole lot of it even in Avengers Infinity War, because that was more so of the battlefield, so it was more open field. So the fact that we got a little bit deeper dive into what Wakanda looks like was cool, and get to see their people and what that looked like, and then to be introduced to a whole different type of tribe and nation, underwater nation, and how they looked was really cool. It was just overall a good job. I know the costume design person who has the costume design, I can't remember her name, but she's award winning. She won an Oscar for best costume design for the first Black Panther. So for her to step it up and knock it out of the park with this movie was just, it was amazing. It was so, like, it wasn't just the special effects and the visuals, but how everyone looked, and every outfit choice, it worked and it looked great and it added to the movie. How the ceremonial funeral garb, or whatever you want to call it, was the white, and it looked amazing. It just, the white honestly worked better. It just made the scene feel more of like a tribute, if that makes sense. Like the all white seemed more like a tribute to Chadwick versus, if they would have worn all black or something like that, it would have been a little bit more different. So I did like those types of decisions that went into the visuals and what they wore, and it just felt like everything had a reason behind it. It wasn't just like, oh, just put them in this. I did like that. Now, to go into what I didn't like, it wasn't a whole lot that I didn't like, but it was a couple things. My first one that I didn't like is, if y'all don't give me more M'Baku, I'm going to riot. M'Baku is honestly my favorite character. I love Chadwick as a person. I love Black Panther, but that darn M'Baku is honestly my favorite Black Panther character. Like, anytime he opens his mouth, I listen. I'm entertained. There were times in here where he was very serious, and you listen to him. Even his growth, from the first one, not liking T'Challa, challenging, for the throne, and not, feeling cast aside with his people, with the Jabari tribe. To go from that to, they reconciled at the end of Black Panther, and then he fought alongside, in the Infinity War and, Endgame, to now, he had a moment with Shuri where, he was like, your brother asked me to look out for you, things like that, to hear that was the relationship that they built over time. Because you got to think about it. One, at this point in time in the MCU, we're years, this is not like our current time. This is not like 2022 for them. They are ahead of us. Because you think about it, the snap from Thanos happened, and then there's been 5 years. And then, there's been more time after. I think they added a year after the snap or something. There was some time added on top of what, the MCU was at. So there's some time. There's some time that's been going on. So you got to think, from him from T'Challa coming back from the snap, because he was a person that, was lost in the snap. From him coming back until him dying in the MCU timeline, that was, a lot of good relationship that was built. So that's a lot of growth from M'Baku. And I hate that we didn't get to see that, and we didn't get to see the new type of relationship they had. But it felt good to see him have that type of growth. But still also be himself in a sense. Like, I like that, a lot of the things that I love about his character are still there, but he's just, I think in a sense maturing as, he leads the Jabari tribe. The other thing was, I definitely wanted to have a better understanding of where all of a sudden this effort to obtain and steal vibranium from Wakanda is coming from. Because we kind of went from the beginning where in Black Panther it was like, okay, we decided to make ourselves known and, branch out and help, as a nation, to second movie, there's people trying to steal vibranium in some of their labs that they had and all this stuff. And it's like, where's that coming from? Like, I felt like it could have been explained a little bit better. Like, I get it, vibranium is a hot commodity, but why mess with a nation that, they dangerous. They are dangerous. The Dora Milaje tribe, ladies. Let me tell you something. You don't want to mess with them. That is, if I ever was a person that had a lot of money, and needed security, needed some people to stay with me in case something go down. That's who I'm hiring. Them ladies are no joke, and I love them too. They are amazing, amazing actresses as well. But I definitely wanted to have a better understanding of where that was coming from. I don't know what the motives were really. I get that there's a lot of things that have happened to Earth, with Thanos and all these things that have happened, with the MCU, but it still doesn't make sense why you would mess with Wakanda to obtain that stuff. That's where I was kind of confused. And it just felt kind of, I know there's been some time passed, but it felt kind of sudden. If we're going by movie one, movie two, it just felt kind of sudden as far as that goes. And then the last thing I did not like, or would have, I wouldn't say didn't like, but would have really loved to seen, and it probably would have made me cry more, is I definitely would have loved to have a scene, one of the scenes where Shuri is kind of to herself and thinking, or, Nakia is to herself thinking about something, or just kind of looking off in the distance and it was silent. Would have loved to have them take like an audio of Chadwick from the first movie saying their name and just kind of saying in like a faint voice. Especially like at the end when Shuri burned her funeral robe, her ceremonial robe, to kind of show as Queen Wanda showed, that helps you to move on from grieving and missing your brother. I would have loved to at that point kind of hear him say Shuri in like a really soft manner. I don't know. I that's just me. Kind of where that comes from is, in Lion King when Mufasa whispers Simba's name. Like, I don't know, like stuff like that. Just I feel like makes an emotional loss and stuff like that. Just I feel like it makes it even bigger. So it's just a small little thing. I wouldn't say it's necessarily something I didn't like, but something I really would have loved to have had in the movie. But man, when I say like I cried, I'm not kidding y'all. I cried 6 times, 6 different times in this movie. I definitely cried, of course, in the beginning. When when they said he had passed, they basically explained in the MCU version of how Chadwick's character, is no longer with us, and then seeing the ceremony, and it really got me when Shuri like kind of leaned over the casket, and I was like, oh man, because you could feel it, you could see it. That was a real scene for her, and I can only imagine how emotional that day, or some of the day, it was probably emotional shooting altogether, but I know for the cast, it was, and Brian Coogler, it probably took a toll emotionally on them. I cried when Queen Ramonda, Shuri had, at that point in the movie, Shuri had been taken by Namor and his people, and Okoye was pleading with Queen Ramonda to, let her go and find Shuri, and Queen Ramonda removes her of her duties, and just Queen Ramonda snaps, and she's like, she's lost everything, and you didn't think about it until she kind of explained it, and you're like, this woman has been through a lot. Like, y'all have to think about it. If y'all go all the way back to Captain America Civil War, that woman lost her husband, and then we get into Black Panther, the first Black Panther. She technically loses T'Challa. He does die. Gets the throne taken from them. Then she gets her son back, and then that's the end of Black Panther. Then we get into Avengers: Infinity War. Loses T'Challa and Shuri in the snap, which is just like, what? And then after 5 years of losing both her children, gets them back, and then shortly after that loses T'Challa for the third time. That was like, whoa. Are you like, whoa? Like, can we pause for a minute? Like, like that was a lot. And of course, because we're, just like, well, we're into the MCU and we're like, okay, what's the next movie? So it can tie into the story. What's the next one? And sometimes we forget about these events that happen to some of the characters that are necessarily in the main picture. Queen Ramonda is an important character of Black Panther, but overall, she doesn't tie in. She's not a lead character into everything else. So to point that out, it was like, Jesus, like, to lose your son 3 different times in 3 different manners, and she lost her husband, and she lost Shuri for 5 years. Like, that's a lot. One child to lose in 3 different ways. He died and lost in battle to Killmonger the first time. Then he gets snapped away for 5 years. Then he dies to a disease in the third, in a third manner. Like, that's 3 different ways to grieve your son. That is insane. That is so insane. And not to mention, she had to assume the role of running Wakanda. And we have no idea what Wakanda lost or what it looked like during those 5 years that, people were snapped away. So that was a crazy scene. When she died, when Queen Ramonda died, I cried. I can't remember, there were a couple other times where I did get emotional. I got emotional when Shuri, when she finally got the heart-shaped herb, when she was able to make a synthetic version. And she went to the Great Plains, and I was like, okay, what are they like? I was really ready for that scene. Like, okay, what is this gonna look like? And for her to meet Killmonger and to see that anger and that rage, and like I said, that the emotions they convey was amazing. Like, she just lost her mother, and she was able to figure this out, and she was doing a lot of this out of anger and revenge. And to have, that interaction with Killmonger and Shuri, was like, Shuri, please don't do it. And you really did feel like for a minute there, like, she's going to kill Namor and she's going to go down the same path as Killmonger. And it's like, maybe it kind of turns into like the Scarlet Witch, how, she's had a couple twists and turns, and, her story, and I kind of felt like maybe maybe she will go down a dark path, and they did a great job and made you believe that would be a possibility. So I got emotional. Then I was like, no, Shuri, please don't go down this path. Like, don't do it. And when she finally became the Black Panther, and everyone at the tribes of Wakanda was so happy, and it was just huge, and for her to take on that mantle was amazing. Because honestly, for a hot minute, I'm not even gonna hold you, because I didn't know how the story was gonna play out before I went to the movie theater and saw how the rest was gonna play out. I honestly thought it was gonna be Nakia that was gonna take over the mantle of Black Panther. So it was really cool to see that Shuri took it over. And then of course I cried at the end. Yeah, we gotta cry. We gotta talk and we gotta talk about the ending. That right there was man. So y'all, T'Challa has a son. Did anybody else like? Nobody else saw that coming. Nobody. And I love how they kept a lot of things that went on in this movie a secret. You know, they do the trailer. That's one thing Marvel has. Please, Marvel, please stop putting out 15 different trailers for one movie. Because then by the time we see it, we didn't felt like we didn't see the movie. And I really do that as a pet peeve of mine. I need them to stop doing that. But there were so many trailers and things that they had put out, and I purposely did not see a lot of the trailers. But I know how some people like to, oh well, this is going to happen, and they try to leak stuff, and a majority of the time it ends up being true. The fact that we knew nothing about this, like nobody predicted this was coming, was amazing. And it just made the scene even better. And I like that it was the post-credit scene, and it wasn't like trying to set up somebody else's movie. It was just, man, I could not stop crying. I honestly could not stop crying. And I just love that it explained some things about Nakia's life during this time and what it's looked like for her. Because she explains in the movie how T'Challa, they had their son, and he was like, I don't want him to grow up in this and have the pressures of, taking over and, all those things. And he's like, raise him elsewhere and all of that. They had some clever storytelling. A lot of times where movies fail is when there are gaps between movies. They don't do a great job of filling those in. And I felt like they did a pretty good job of filling in those gaps that we have between their movies and the 5-year snap and all that. Like, they do a really good job, I felt like, of filling those gaps with storytelling. Excuse me. But yeah, just, the fact that he has a son and he knows some things, but it was like he doesn't. It's like, do you how much do you really know who your father was? You know of your father from what Nakia has told you, but then it's like, how much do you really know? And it was just, that part really got me. And it also gives us and gives Chadwick's character T'Challa a legacy in the MCU now. Whether he grows up to choose to be the Black Panther and live in Wakanda and all these things, that's up to him. But the fact that his bloodline in the timeline lives on, and the legacy that he has lives on outside of his sister Shuri taking over the Black Panther role, it just felt good to have that happen. And that was just amazing to me. It really was a special movie. And I'm honestly just overall happy. I know that this was a tall ask for them to have an original script and then have to completely change that because your main character, loses his life in a battle with cancer. That's a tough ask. And, with that being said, the reason, of that is why I'm not going to give a rating to this. Normally I rate my movies, say, whatever out of 10. But I'm just overall happy with this movie. I definitely think, you guys, if you're watching, you haven't seen it. I mean, at this point, I've spoiled kind of a lot. But go see it still, really. Go see it, and I just felt like how important it was to me. And to kind of, for me, send Chadwick off, with the MCU. I couldn't rate it. I really can't. Because it just was something where this holds something special to me. I couldn't, honestly, I'll tell y'all, I could not watch Black Panther after Chadwick passed. There was a while I couldn't watch it, because it was hard. And so I think that was why also I was very emotional watching this movie because I just hadn't watched a whole lot of his movies because it was just tough. I watched um, a couple of the last movies he was in, and I can't remember the name of it, but there's a Spike Lee movie he was in about the Vietnam War, and you saw how his body was suffering, and to know, I could, that was hard to watch, and I was like, I can't go back and watch Black Panther, like I can't watch, his James Brown movie. I was like, I can't do it because that was hard to watch, knowing what he was going through at that point. So this one, I really had to face it. I had to face my emotions for real with this one. And I'll end it on something funny, y'all. I was sitting in that movie theater, and as soon as it ended, I was still crying. I literally shot up from my seat. I went by myself. I shot up out of my seat. And I mean, I was walking fast. I'm a big dude, but I mean, I was I was power walking out of there because even though nobody in that movie theater knew me, I was like, I'm not walking, I'm not about to walk out of here sobbing like this, and everybody looking at me crazy, like, did you know Chadwick? Why are you crying like this? But man, I could not stop crying. It was just crazy. My my boss went and saw it Thursday, and I went and saw it Friday. And he texted me. He was like, "Hey, let me know how you like the movie when you get done." And so I get in my car and I'm texting my boss, and I am just like still crying, tears hitting my phone screen, and I'm like, Brian, I'm still crying. I'm like, this was amazing, but I'm still emotional. Like, I mean, y'all, I was emotional about this movie, and that's just a combination of missing Chadwick and hating that he won't continue this role and this awesome exciting movie franchise, and but also just how well of a job that they did conveying emotion. We think conveying emotion is easy. It's really not. I won't do a review on it, but even watching Black Adam, I was talking to Kanash, friend of the show, former host, Fresh Take. I was talking to him about it, and I was like, where I didn't like Black Adam was, I was like, I love Dwayne Johnson, but he just can't, for some reason, when he tries to show emotion and have those emotional scenes, I don't believe it. It's not believable. So it's not, just because you cry on screen doesn't mean you're gonna, get us to cry and feel what you're displaying. Like, it doesn't always work like that. So for them to show the different sides of their emotions, it wasn't just emotions as far as like crying. Shuri's anger that she goes through in this movie, her reluctance to really deal with the loss of her brother, like all of those things, they did an amazing job of really making you feel every single emotion that goes on during this movie. There's even some times where there's some happiness, and I was happy at the end when it seemed like M'Baku was gonna be running Wakanda, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Like, that's my dude. So they had all sorts of emotions in here, and you felt every single one of them. And I know I'm not going super in depth with this, but I really just wanted to give a lot of love and appreciation for everyone that put in effort to really make this a great movie. Ryan Coogler is a great director, and he really brought it this time around. Everybody was like, Black Panther was so impactful and big for our culture. It's like, okay, now there's a second movie. How well you gonna do? And he did an amazing job with what he had to deal with. So definitely give a big kudos to them and everyone that played a part in this movie. So, like I said, guys, I'm not going to give it a rating. I would say I would recommend just to go enjoy this movie. I'm even debating going a second time. We'll see what my budget looks like, especially since it's Christmas time. But I may do it if it's a cheap ticket. But yeah, I really recommend you guys seeing this movie. And I really missed you guys. I really appreciate you guys watching. Fresh Take Cinema is not going anywhere. Like I said, I've had a lot of things going on this year. Just one of the things I'll share with you guys, which is a great thing, is I got approved to be in a home ownership program. So big, huge thank you to Habitat for Humanity. And so been doing classes and doing certain things to get that ball rolling to become a homeowner here soon. So just a lot going on, and I just haven't had a lot of extra time to dedicate to going to the movies and doing these reviews. So I'm not going anywhere, guys. I still am keeping this alive. Just bear with me, guys. Had some things going on, but I definitely will get back to doing this on a regular basis once things for me change and kind of settle. So I appreciate you guys watching. I really love you guys. I miss all of you, and thank you guys for being here and continue to rock with me. So you guys take care. Like I said, as I record this, we are in the month of December, so I wanted to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever holiday you celebrate. Have a great holiday. Celebrate with your family and your loved ones, and I will see you guys later. Once again, Wakanda forever.